Hey, YouTube, what's going on? It's your man here, the one and only Lee Sanders from the RCWR show, and I am back this go round. You knew I had to do it, man. You knew I had to show some love to my boys, U2, as they dropped a new album earlier today. It is their 14th studio album titled Songs of Experience. Now, look, if you guys are new and you're coming across me for the very first time, one of the things you should know off the break is I stay reviewing albums. All right. If I feel it's on point, if I feel it's something that you need to know about, or if I feel like it's just something honestly noteworthy, I'm definitely talking about it, bringing it to your attention. And just honestly, from the fan perspective, because I don't get paid to do these joints. All right. I'm pretty much coming out of my own pocket to review these albums. And hey, sometimes we disagree. A lot of times we're like on the same page. So, hey, as always, I appreciate you guys that take the time out, check out my album reviews. But if you're new, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss out. I do a little bit of everything on this channel. Okay. Now, this is a good treat for any longtime subscriber of mine because they remember when I came on here a couple of years back and reviewed U2's Songs of Innocence. And I tell you, that was an album that honestly, I was pretty brutal. I will admit, I was pretty brutal when I initially had reviewed that album. And I talked about a few key tracks. And I think we can all be in agreement, though. That is definitely an album that grows on you the more and more that you listen to it. Okay. So keeping that in mind, let's just kind of put a nice little pretty ribbon on what all has transpired since U2 got to this point where they released this album. And as always, make sure you like, you comment, subscribe, right? All right. So Songs of Innocence had came out in 2014. And I think we can all be in agreement. Probably the biggest talk about that album is the fact that so many people felt like they were violated because that album was released for free to everybody that had iTunes, because basically YouTube had like this long partnership with Apple and they decided, hey, you know what, let's do something really cool. Now I gotta tell you, this is not the first time in history of iTunes that just mysteriously a song has like popped up in your iTunes library. You know you didn't buy it, right? You know you didn't go to some website to be able to gain exclusive access to a couple of key tracks or whatever. It's not the first time, but the fact that it was U2 and it was a whole album and it just mysteriously was there like a damn pimple that had a lot of people, one, not into that type of genre. Two, probably never even heard of U2, never even gave a damn about U2. They're like, what the hell is this I'm listening to? How did this, what the hell is going on? So it had a lot of people pissed off. I thought it was a genius move, quite honestly. But hey, it's a matter of opinion. We all can have our disagreements, right? So they were supposed to follow up on that album because when it's all said and done, that effort, it was a little bit lackluster. It didn't quite live up to the album that came out previously before that, which previously before that was, oh God, see, I'm drawing a blank right now. It's a good thing I have some bullet points right here. Bear with me a second, guys. I got all the U2 albums and I can't quite remember all of them, which freaking sucks. I'm backtracking. Artificial Horizon. Yeah, that's what it was. No Line on the Horizon. That was the album. I don't know why I like drew a blank at that. But anyway, I'm sorry, guys. So like they decided that after Songs of Innocence, they were going to go back to the drawing board and try to come up with a more stronger effort that would do U2 fans proud. This effort, titled Songs of Experience, was supposed to come out fourth quarter of 2016, but it didn't come out due to a couple of reasons. One, Bono was involved in a serious bicycle accident that just had him freaking the hell out. He was thinking about his own mortality and just, I guess it really started dawning on him that, man, you know, I'm not as young as I used to be. My bandmates who I've been with for like 40 plus years now, we're all getting up there in age. Sooner or later, we're like gonna get to that point where one by one, we're all gonna drop off, if not at the same time. And then you had the political climate that was going on that just, some would make the argument, one of the most craziest times in political American politic history. You had the Bree exit, all of these things. It just made U2 decide, you know what, maybe we should hold off on this album a little bit while longer, go back to the drawing board and like really just start from scratch. Album was ready to drop fourth quarter of 2016, but they decided, no, 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 let's just scrap all this. Let's go back to the drawing board. And, you know, I'm really glad that they went back to the drawing board, because this album that they put out, I would have to say, is lyrically one of their most strongest albums, I would have to say, in recent years. And just to kind of really connect the dots for you guys, as far as like how back, like if you just want to talk about lyrically, I think I dare say you would have to almost go as far back as, it's a toss up for me. I think either you'd have to go as far back as All That You Can't Leave Behind, or maybe you can make the argument it hasn't been lyrically this strong since How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb. And I think many hardcore U2 fans, or just general U2 fans, would definitely agree with me. Now, look, are you going to find, those of you that are familiar with the U2 catalog on this album, are you going to find a lot of tracks that usually have that Bono trademark where he's talking about love and peace and why can't we all just get along, and throw in a little bit of talk of God? Yes, that is sprinkled all across this album, but it fits so perfectly with the times. And I think many of you would be in agreement with me. I'm not really sure what it is about YouTube, but it seems like whenever there has been a drastic change in our culture, good or bad, it just always seems like YouTube is somehow always able to like dig in deep, and lyrically, artistically, they are just able to deliver some of the most strongest content out there. And this effort definitely shows that. I am reviewing the deluxe edition. I repeat, I'm reviewing the deluxe edition. That basically was like 17 tracks total. Yeah, I got like a couple of, honestly, if my memory serves correctly, there was only like maybe one new original song that was not included on the initial Songs of Experience album. But the deluxe edition, I would recommend off the break, if you ask me if the deluxe edition is worth getting. I think it is worth getting. Now, for us guys that had actually pre-ordered the album on iTunes, we actually were able to get a hold of the album, and I have my receipt. I can prove it to you guys that maybe doubt it, but I was actually able to get the album, the deluxe edition, for $8.98. And I think now they want $14.99. So if you guys had missed out on that for iTunes, hopefully you were able to score a pretty sweet deal somewhere else. Let's talk about some of these tracks. The opening track, which was Love Is All We Have Left, I love that track. It was a nice, good opener. You weren't really sure what to expect, because you're like, wait a minute, this is how we're kicking off this album. We're kicking off this album with this very slow kind of, I'm not really sure. I don't know what to say now. I'm not really feeling the direction of this, but it was probably like, of all the tracks, one of the shortest. For me, it just kind of seemed like a prologue for what was to come of the album. Honestly, for me, you listen to that track and you're just kind of thinking of just everything that's been happening in the political landscape, right? All these months. And you're kind of going, yeah, well, what is left in our society right now? And so for it to open up with Love Is All We Have Left, I definitely was kind of like reminiscent about what all has been going on. And honestly, you know, a U2 album, you know, they're always talking about what's happening in culture, political scene, all that. So I thought that was a really good, strong opener. Lights of Home, I enjoyed that track. That kind of gave me a life and death type of vibe situation, seeing the light, trying to be set free. I thought that was a really good track. And the way I'm rating these tracks, I'm going to go from a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the crap, 5 being the awesome sauce. So for Love is All We Have Left, I'm giving that a 2 stars out of 5. I'm staying pretty firm on that one. And I'm staying firm on that because for me, although I could understand lyrically the tone that U2 was trying to set as the opener, I don't really think I would have gone with that track to begin the album, quite honestly. Life and Death, or Lights of Home, rather, as I said, that tied in a lot to Life and Death. I would give that one a 2 out of 5 stars as well. Now, let's get to the third track. And I think probably honestly, the album should have opened up with this one. You're the Best Thing About Me. I think by now any U2 fan has seen the video for that and everything. And I don't know what it is, but on a side note, it seems like every freaking time I want to like go to New York and I want to do something cool, and then I say, that's okay, I changed my mind, I miss U2. I BS you not. Like, to the point, I actually was supposed to be doing a quick run up to New York this weekend, but my schedule had changed and I had to back out like a couple of weeks ago. And then I hear, oh, U2 is going to be there for Saturday Night Live. And I actually had spent a couple of weeks trying to get tickets to Saturday Night Live, not knowing who the lineup was going to be. I was just trying to get the first batch of tickets that I could get for December. And I'm like, oh man, it's freaking U2. I'm like, are you, get out of here? Like, when I gave up, it's like, man, if I'd have known that, I would have like tried harder to get a hold of some freaking tickets. But instead, I get offered tickets to the Stephen Colbert show. But like, that's long after U2, I think, is done in New York. I think it's like 2-3 weeks later that I had got tickets for Stephen Colbert. Nah, that's okay. I passed for now. But hey, I digress, man. But no, You're the Best Thing About Me. I think this is really the track that should have opened up the album, quite honestly. This was a great throwback. I think many of you guys that are familiar with U2's catalog would agree with me. It was a nice throwback to All That You Can't Leave Behind. Also a nice good throwback to How to Dismantle and Atomic Bomb. And I mentioned those two albums in particular because the more and more you listen to this particular track, the more and more you kind of get the impression that like it would have been a great B-side. Like when you go to All That You Can't Leave Behind, you're kind of thinking of or actually, you know what? No, go back to How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb for a moment. When you listen to this song, You're the Best Thing About Me, you're kind of reminded of All Because of You. You're reminded of that. And then you're also reminded of, there was a U2 compilation album that had came out a while back, kind of post How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb. It had like a bunch of B-sides and rarities. It kind of reminded me just a little bit of Love You Madly, which is another Dismantle B-side outtake that didn't actually make it onto the album. It kind of fits those two albums that I just described perfectly. Like maybe they were thinking about releasing it and then like they shelved it and was like, nah, we'll come back to this a couple of years later. Almost kind of has a little touch vibe of The Sweetest Thing as well. Really great, strong song. I definitely had enjoyed that one. I gave that one a 3 stars out of 5. Edge had really let loose on the guitar for that one. Definitely enjoyed that one. Really good, strong track. That's when things kind of really start picking up, I feel, is track 3. You're the Best Thing About Me. Let's move on to the next track. Track 4, which is Get Out of Your Own Way. I went on ahead. I gave that 2.5 stars out of 5. Lyrically, I liked it. I really didn't have that much of a problem with the track. Basically, to summarize that particular track, it's pretty much my interpretation. Again, my interpretation, we can differ, but my interpretation is basically talking about how you can basically be your own enemy, your own worst enemy. If you want change, if you want to fight for something different, you want to fight for something good, you can't really be waiting on the sidelines, waiting for others to do that change for you. Sometimes you got to look within yourself and you got to jump out there and basically do it yourself. That's basically how I had interpreted this track. So yeah, that was a good track. Like I said, I mean, why am I giving it a 2.5 out of 5? That's just honestly how I feel. I mean, there's nothing really bad or indifferent that I can really pinpoint for why I gave it such a low rating, because keeping that in mind, some would make the argument, well, Lee, can't you give that a 3 stars? I'm staying firm at 2.5. I think that's more than fair. Let's see, track 5, American Soul. Love that one. For me, what stands out the most on this album, as far as this track goes, the bass, the drums. Yes, Adam, Larry, I thought they stood out pretty well on this track, just jamming together on this one. You also got Edge doing his thing with the synthesizers. Yeah, those damn synthesizers. You knew it was gonna make a cameo at some point. But I like this track. Definitely kind of had a nice rock and roll type of vibe to it. Lyrically, I liked it. Lyrically, it kind of, my interpretation, it made me think a lot about foreigners that, when it's all said and done in America, we all are foreigners. We all come from various parts, right, in the land. But like, we're always able to find like one thing that like brings us all together. There's usually like that one thing that unites us. So like when I'm listening to this, it was kind of nice hearing how, hey, you like rock and roll, we like rock and roll. We came to America, we're looking for that American soul or whatever. So yeah, that was a pretty good upbeat tempo type of track. Really, really had enjoyed that one. But fans of Adam and Larry, you're looking for them to kind of have like some nice standout moments. I think this is one of a couple of tracks where groove wise, they really were getting into it. See, track 6, Summer of Love. I got to give it up to this one. This one for me, great standout track. By the way, just going back, American Soul, I gave that one a 2.5 out of 5 as well. All right, track 6, Summer of Love. I went on ahead and I gave that one a 2.5 out of 5 as well. It has a nice acoustic Mediterranean type of vibe to it, but it also shows once again the maturity level that artistically U2 has been able to embark on through the years. Kind of go back to How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb for a second and think about that nice Spaniard version of Fast Cars, and you're kind of like, whoa, U2 kind of went like 180. Like, where the hell did this come from? Like, I didn't know they had this in them. Well, when you're listening to Summer of Love, you kind of get that same type of vibe, because it doesn't really come off like a U2 song. Like, you just get rid of Bono's vocals, just remove it for a second, and you're kind of going, damn, this is really. And then when you hear it's a U2 song, you hear Bono come in there, you're like, whoa, say what? So again, the maturity level for that one, really enjoyed it. Bass, because I'm all about that bass, man. I am a sucker for my bass. I love my bass. Yeah. You guys are gonna love the bass on this one. Let's see what else. Hey, by the way, I want to take this time out for those of you that have hung out with me this far in reviewing the album. Thank you guys so much. If you have not done so already, make sure you do hit that subscribe button so you never miss out. Do a little bit of everything. If you guys are into various types of music, I got your hookup. A lot of stuff that I review. And if there's something that maybe you want me to check out, to consider for reviewing, you can let me know in the comment section. I'm also on Twitter, Facebook at the RCWR Show. Again, Summer of Love. You guys are going to appreciate Adam Clayton's bass. That's all I gotta say for me, because I don't know what it is, but like over the years, more and more of us have been going, "Where's Adam's moment?" We don't hear enough Adam. Like we kind of hear everybody else. We don't really hear enough Adam. And for me, it was kind of nice to hear a couple of tracks where Adam is actually. And no, you don't have to do something with your headphones and turn on the bass or fiddle around with your iPod or whatever. Adam actually shines pretty damn good. If you don't really feel him, you can't really hear him on track 5. You're definitely going to hear him on track 6, Summer of Love. Track 7, Red Flag Day. This one gave me what was U2's Boy album. And I think those of you, again, familiar with the catalog, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Has a boy vibe type of era to it. Bono really stands out on this track because he hits the high notes on here rather well. Kind of teasing falsetto just a little bit, just a little tiny bit, but he hits the high notes really good. I had picked up some nice undertones with this track as well. Kind of had some nice Caribbean reggae type of undertones. So don't be too surprised if at some point as the band is on tour, especially if they do some type of an acoustic night or whatever, don't be too surprised if maybe this might morph into a reggae Caribbean type of joint. Because I don't know if you guys had picked up on it initially that listened to this album, but like when you go back, and it's definitely overall an album that it grows on you. If you don't really get it the first go around, you kind of have to keep coming back to it, and it just grows on you more and more and more. You walk away with a few different interpretations. I must have listened to this album now 3 times since it was released. See, track 8, we're almost near the end, guys. We're only close to the end here. Track 8, which is The Showman, Little More Better. This one gave me a nice doo-wop vibe type of era. I couldn't quite like think of the bands. You know, when I say doo-wop, you're also kind of thinking like Motown and all that. I don't really want you guys thinking so much Motown, because Motown was like straight up soul. All right. So I don't want to get the two confused. But doo-wop kind of had, 1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock rock, you just got to listen to it. It has a nice, catchy, and that's the thing that I really like the most about this track. Great melody, most simplistic lyrics that you would ever come across. It's another somewhat love ballad, but it's definitely like a love doo-wop ballad, if you will. For that one, I gave it 3.5 stars, and just going back to Red Flag Day, I gave that one a 3 out of stars as well. Okay. Next track, what we got? Track 9, The Little Things That You Give Away. Love Edge's guitar arrangements for this one. Kind of had a with or without you vibe to it. Bono really coming in. I would dare say that of all the tracks on this album, this is like my most favorite track out of the entire album. I gave this the highest rating possible. I gave it a 5 out of 5. I thought that was the lyrically, musical arrangement wise, the strongest track out of the entire album. Believe it or not, I could actually see a music video spawning for this track. So hopefully it does happen, but I definitely felt this was the most strongest of the album. Let's see, track 10, Landlady. A couple of different ways you could interpret this. You can interpret this track as U2 kind of struggling in their early years and kind of being a little bit reminiscent on some key points in their life. You could also look at this as maybe Bono talking about Lady Liberty, how freedom had presented itself. A couple of different interpretations that you can have walking away from it. This one I gave a 2.5 out of 5. One of the next strongest tracks out of the entire album, the Blackout, By now, everybody has probably seen the video, heard the track. My God, I love Blackout. Blackout, you keep going to. If there's one track on this album that you're probably going to just keep hitting replay, Blackout. I mean, it's got that nice arena type of up and down vibe to it. I really like it. I also like how it pretty much talks about, for me, my interpretation of it, basically democracy getting shaken up, politics being shaken up, the world as we know it is like being shaken up, and like all hell has broken loose, and like as a result we are now like in this blackout mode, and as a result of being in this blackout mode, it's like now more harder than ever to try to see things with clarity, right? That's one vibe you can get as you're checking this out, man. And look, again, I'm talking about this album. Anybody that may feel as though they don't like this album, I just want to have a really good conversation with you and understand why you maybe do not like the album. Like, I'm looking in the live chat. Sadly, when we do it live initially for you guys, you all don't see the live chats. And I wish that's something that YouTube would work on in post-production. Like, once us video creators are done, you all can see like what people were saying that were initially checking out the stream live. But Miriam Valquez, he says U2 so is bad. He actually spelled that SOE. I don't know if maybe he was in a hurry typing that or what. He's like, it is very bad. He said has lost the magic. So let me clean that up. I think what he's trying to say is U2 is so bad. It is very bad. They have lost the magic. Honestly, for me, and hopefully he's talking about the new album. Hopefully he's not just saying like in general. Anybody that has not listened to this new album, I could respect you 10 times more if you went out of your way and actually listened to the album, and then you felt kind of like, I didn't like it because of these reasons, right? So please, if you're gonna give constructive criticism about a U2 album, in this case, Songs of Experience, and you didn't like it, hopefully you'll have a little bit more than, well, U2 is just so bad. Okay. Songs of Experience. Okay, now Miriam is clarifying. He's saying Songs of Experience, as far as he's concerned, is bad. He feels they lost the magic. And I'm going to challenge Miriam and anybody else that feels that way. What exactly? You got to give me and everybody else that's going to eventually look at your comments or hear your comments why you feel they lost their magic, because there's actually quite a good number of tracks that I just talked about where you got flashes of great brilliance. Let's continue on. We talked about Lady Liberty. How many other tracks do we have here? I think that might be it. No, Love is Bigger Than Anything in Its Way. Good track. I didn't really, that was okay track. I gave that one a 2.5 out of 5. And 13, There Is a Light. Somewhat a new interpretation, but somewhat new, kind of following up to a song that was done from the Songs of Innocence album, different arrangements and all that. I thought, given the overall tone of this album, it fit very perfectly. Now, one other track I want to review, because I'm not going to review the entire album. By now, I've pretty much talked about 13 tracks, okay? Let's talk about one more track. Ordinary Love, the Extraordinary Mix. This isn't the one that was on the Mandela soundtrack one, okay? This was a different arrangement one. Again, some of you may kind of question, well, why is this? Well, think about it for a second. Number one, Ordinary Love was not, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, but Ordinary Love was not on Songs of Innocence, if I'm not mistaken. So the only way you could have accessed the song at the time, you could have only accessed it on the Mandela soundtrack. And then if you were clever like me, you went on ahead and you took Ordinary Love and you actually maybe put that as the last track on Songs of Innocence, right? So U2 didn't officially like, they never did like put that on one of their albums. So for U2, under the circumstances, again, the overall tone, the overall theme of this album, it made a lot of sense for them to put this song on the album, but at the same time give it a different tempo, different arrangements to complement the overall tone of the album, the overall execution. And I had no problem with Ordinary Love. Book of Your Heart, I could have done without the track, quite honestly. I could have done without it. I think it was nice that they went on ahead and tried to include that for those that ordered the deluxe edition, but I honestly could have done without it. Lyrically, I felt Bono had finally hit a stride. I would have to say it's his most strongest lyrics since How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb, All That You Can't Leave Behind. I think we all can be in agreement when it came to No Line on the Horizon, that album. Bono was just kind of being soft with the lyrics. He was being a little bit, it seemed like he wasn't really challenging himself. I mean, the lyrics were just kind of silly, quite honestly. So Edge surprises me more and more as the years go by. He did pretty well. Everybody did pretty good on this album. Now, given how I just rated every single track overall, and we're gonna stick to that 1 to 5 scale, 1 being the crap, 5 being the awesome sauce, I would honestly have to give this album 3.5 out of 5 stars. If you want to expand on that further, like what about from a 1-point scale to a 10-point scale, from 1 to 10, 1 being the crap, 10 being the awesome sauce, I would give the album a 7 out of 10. So basically, when I say 3.5 out of 5, you magnify that, you revise that 1 to 10, I would have to say 7 out of 10. And I think that's pretty fair. I think that's a pretty fair assessment. So that's my take. For those of you that maybe are looking for me to talk about the remaining track that's on here, let me look here. I'm not going to do it on here. But what I will do is I will talk about it on the podcast that I do every Tuesday night, 10 p.m. Eastern. It's on Spreaker.com. All the links you need is in the video description down below. If you can't check it out live, you can actually scoop it up on the downloads, as is available on demand on great platforms like Google Play Music, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Google Play Music, all over the place. Use the keywords, the RCWR show. But yes, U2, Songs of Experience gets a pass from me, a much stronger effort than Songs of Innocence. It's refreshing to see U2 not be in a position now where they're only releasing albums like every 5 years or more. This was a really good turnaround for them, considering the last effort was in 2014. And I tell you, as the guys are creeping up on 60, it's really nice and refreshing to see these guys still going out there, not so much relying on the hits, although they came off of the 30th anniversary tour for, what was it, Joshua album or Joshua Tree album. It's still nice and refreshing to see these guys still going out there, hammering it, putting out there some new music, and hopefully a lot more people will be able to enjoy it. I'm wrapping it up, but I'm looking at some more questions that you guys have. Lemon, you say, why was I gone for about a month? Dude, I strictly do the podcast, man. I do the podcast every Tuesday night. Worst case scenario, if I don't do the podcast the day that it's supposed to air, worst case scenario, I pre-record and I get it out to you guys as soon as humanly possible. But for anybody that's going like, hey, where you at? Where you at? I'm working 2 full-time jobs, day and night, and somehow I managed to do a podcast every Tuesday night and Sundays whenever there is a wrestling pay-per-view event that I have to cover. So if you're not following me at the links I provided below in the video description, that's you all's fault, man. I can only do but so much. I give you the links. If you don't follow them, that's on you all. All right, so let's see. What else we got here? Sticking to U2. Let's stick to U2. We got anything else on U2? Let's see what we got here. Da, 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 da. Let's see. Looking at the rest, I see some people making the argument that No Line on the Horizon is their best work in their last 17 years, half of the album. I see some interesting discussions going on here. Some kind of feel that U2's kind of lost right now without Brian Eno and Daniel Lanois. I think really one of the questions that we should be talking about, and by the way, for those of you that may be a little bit curious as far as who had produced this album, you had a few people. You had Ryan Tedder, you had Jackknife Lee, Steve Lillywhite, who has been like hooking up U2 for many, many years now, Andy Barlow, Jolan Thomas. So you had a lot of hands on this album, but I'm going to leave everything else up to you guys. So I want to hear what y'all had thought about the album. Post your comments down below. Hopefully you had appreciated this very in-depth album review. You know, if it went as long as it did, just kind of take the comfort knowing that like you're talking to somebody that's been a U2 fan since like the early 80s, right? I grew up on these guys. I've got every single freaking album. So take my review for what it's worth at face value, as I'm not being paid. I don't make money on YouTube anymore doing this. My money is working my 2 full-time jobs, okay? So, you know, for me at the end of the day, I'm coming out of my pocket to talk about these albums that hopefully at some point you'll check out, you'll consider, and I want to know what you think when you do pick them up. So give me those comments. Remember, I'm on Twitter, Facebook. I'm also on Instagram at the RCWR Show. Catch my podcast every Tuesday night, 10 p.m. Eastern on Spreaker. All the links you need is in the video description. Make sure you like, you comment, you subscribe. And until next go round, I'm wishing all y'all to be safe. Most importantly, be kind to one another. Everybody do take care.